Welcome to Boxing During Dinner, episode 24.
Here it is. Yeah.
Last week we mentioned it was Don Mattingly, my favorite player, 23. Yeah. This was Ricky Henderson.
Ricky Henderson?
When I was a kid, I wanted nothing more than to be Ricky Henderson.
Well, I was going to say this is pre-steroids Barry Bonds.
Also.
I liked him too.
Then he became, 25 and much bigger.
Yeah.
I think his head's still growing.
It probably is.
Who's doing more steroids, him or Manny Pacquiao? Wait, no.
You
know what? I already pissed off the Filipinos enough last week. We got some. You know what? Filipino friends of mine. I love Manny Pacquiao. He's a great fighter. So we're just joking around here. I still think Mayweather will beat him, but it's just my opinion.
We'll see what our guest has to
say. All right.
So
what do we have for food here, David?
Well, this is recession dining, and we were on a tight timeline tonight. So some Miami Children's Hospital cafeteria food. I got grilled chicken and carrots from Miss Angie. And you've got yourself a grilled chicken sandwich with some cheese over here and mashed potatoes.
I do. I don't even know what it was. It's covered in cheese, but it looks good.
Yeah, Miss Angie doesn't mess around. She's always got something good.
Yeah, so last week we were talking Mayweather Ortiz. And guess what? This week it's still a hot topic. Yeah, I mean, it's people are still buzzing about it. People still ask me about the fight, what my opinion is. Did Victor Ortiz deserve to get knocked out the way he did? I say yes. Mm-hmm. He much deserved it. But our guest tonight is a very known writer in the boxing world and in the environmental world as well. And he was there for the fight, so I'd like to pick his brain and see what he thinks about it.
That's right. You guys can disagree with us, but you can't disagree with him because he was actually there.
Exactly, and he's Hope Solo's #1 fan, and I do know this.
Please, Hope.
Kieran Mulvaney from ESPN.com, HBOBoxing.com, and also from Discovery News. So welcome to Boxing During Dinner, Kieran.
Thanks a lot, guys. It's great to be here.
Thanks so much.
Kieran, the first thing I wanted to ask you, and because I've asked a few writers and reporters this, if you were covering any said athlete and he told you that, Kieran, you don't know shit, you don't know what you're talking about, during an interview, what would you do?
I don't know. I don't think I'd be quite as savvy and swift and witty as Larry was. I certainly don't think I'd get in his face quite as much as Larry did, particularly whether I was 80 or whether I was 18. I'd probably, there's that great shot where Larry looks briefly dumbfounded for about, half a second. That would be my look for a few minutes.
I thought that was Larry's signature look at all times.
And I guess my follow-up question, if you were doing a story on polar bears and a polar bear told you, hey, Kieran, you don't know shit about polar bears, what would you do?
I'd obviously cut down on my alcohol intake.
That's probably the best response there is for that question.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'd be amazed that a polar bear would be talking to me. I try to become friends with them automatically.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool to have a polar bear hanging out at your house watching boxing.
Yeah.
But anyway, Kieran, you were there for the Mayweather Ortiz fight. A couple of weeks have passed by. I mean, a week and a half.
Yep.
What are your thoughts now? 10 days out of that fight. Are you still dumbfounded by what happened and what's transpired since then, especially with De La Hoya and Victor Ortiz?
Yeah, well, I mean, my views on the fight itself, I think, are basically the same as your guys. My reaction immediately afterwards was you protect yourself at all times. If Floyd had cold-cocked Victor that first time that Victor went in to hug him, okay, that would have been a little bit off. If he'd done it the second time, less off. But, look, if Victor had gone in to hug Floyd any more times, the replay would have had to have been on Cinemax all night. It was a fight. And basically Floyd Mayweather took Victor Ortiz to school. And what happened in that ring, it wasn't just about that headbutt. It wasn't just about Joe Cortez's actions. It wasn't just about that shot. Victor Ortiz had checked out of that fight. Mentally, it was too much for him mentally. I think he checked out of it before he even went in there. He might have checked out of it when Floyd grabbed him by the throat at the weigh-in, and he didn't do anything about it. I like Victor. I like him very much. But he now has 3 losses, and they're all due to mental implosions. And I just, he just wasn't there. He couldn't cope with Floyd. And it would be one thing that, you know, at least he had the kind of grace, as he does after the fight, to say, hey, you know, you learned these things, it's a lesson learned. But then to have this bizarre Twilight Zone phone conference call with reporters the other day, in which he said, you know what, I was winning the fight, Floyd was scared, that's why he started to use elbows, and that's why I used the headbutt. Come up, in other words, a completely different answer than he gave immediately after the fight, to demand a rematch, to say he was winning, to say that Floyd, you know, is nothing in his eyes, and that Floyd, to secure his legacy, has to fight Victor Ortiz again. It was just bizarre.
Yeah, Victor Ortiz, for everything that went wrong for him last Saturday, has done himself no favors. And as much, you know, I have to say, you want to like Victor Ortiz so much because you feel like his story, his fighting spirit. A lot of times, you know, he's a fun fighter to watch. You want that guy to be the fighter that looks like he's supposed to be, but every time he opens his mouth, he is doing himself a complete disservice. I've really never heard him speak and say something that's helping his cause, which is really unfortunate. And especially when you have someone who's as terrible with the media as Oscar De La Hoya is, as his idol. You know, I'm not going to take the same angle Mayweather did and attack, you know, the fishnet stockings and things like that. But those two guys are made for each other as far as dealing with the media and just knowing the wrong thing to say at all times.
Yeah, and I mean, it was just a very, very peculiar a conference call. They, you know, then it even got to a point where by the end they were basically saying, hey, you know, the Joe Cortez got the gig on that Saturday night because he was Floyd's friend. I mean, he actually said that, you know, that well, hey, I'd have done fine if the referee had been my friend too. And then by the end of it, Oscar was saying, has anything like this ever happened in the history of boxing? Well, yes, a lot, actually. You know, you want to see something worse. You want to see Tomas Molinares knocking out Marlon Starling in 1988 after the bell had rung. And Joe Cortez initially, incidentally, was the referee for that too. You know, what do you want to talk about? Your guy, Abner Mares, turning, you know, Joseph Becco's genitals into a pinata. Let's talk about that.
Can we trademark that the genital pinata? You know, it's amazing to me how the story changes. I mean, you know, before the fight, I remember, you know, Ortiz's camp had some questions about Cortez being the ref, and Ortiz himself said he had no concerns, that he had full faith in Joe Cortez, and then all of a sudden he's retracting that and saying Cortez should have, you know, never even been the ref. It's just, come on, man, it's not believable.
It's really weird, you know, because I think Victor kind of is like this kind of like surfer dude, you know, who we get a little bit. And then I just think maybe sometimes some of the folks around him, like he's like, hey man, I'm cool, Cortez can be the ref. I'm like, right after the fight, he's like, hey, I'm cool, I had fun, it was all good, you know. And then I think the people around him maybe say, Victor, you got a job, man. And maybe like suddenly wind him up and maybe he starts to think, oh, well, maybe they're right. I don't know, it was just the inconsistency. That's very, very, very bizarre.
And something you were saying about Ortiz before, that his 3 losses, he's mentally imploded, you know, and I'm afraid to see what he would do in a 4th loss, because, you know, the 3 that he's done so far have been pretty stupid. What could he do to top this?
It's always different.
Yeah, it's actually pretty hard to imagine. It's like, well, he's actually gotten a loss for a cheap shot. He's lost for receiving what he calls a cheap shot. So he's got rid of those. I mean, he's quit once. I mean, I don't know exactly what he could do. He could actually, you know what he could do? He could do the fan man thing, except that he could actually fly into the ring as fan man, like in the middle of it, between rounds or something like that, and get the DQ for that somehow. I just can't see what else he could do.
And what do you think is next for Floyd? Because, you know, obviously everybody's talking about the Pacquiao fight. Will it happen? I mean, nobody knows at this point, but who do you think is a viable option for Floyd Mayweather to take on next?
Well, I could be wrong. I don't think it's going to be Pacquiao. He doesn't sound like he I don't think he just like desperately wants it, really. Look, Floyd got $40 million for taking some poor kid out in back and spanking him. So, and he really, I think he's now convinced himself that Pacquiao is on steroids. And he doesn't want to work with Bob Arum, and I don't think Bob Arum wants to work with him. I actually just wrote a piece. We did a little hot button piece, you know, for ESPN, where you know, we just argue positions for the sake of it. And I said, you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if an Amir Khan Floyd Mayweather fight happens in 2012. You know, Floyd keeps talking about how he wants to fight in Britain. He was telling us during fight week how people in the UK love him more than they do in the US. Amir's called him out, and he's got his attention enough for Floyd to respond. You know, like everybody calls Floyd out. But he only responds to people who he's a little bit interested in.
Kieran, before we let you go, this upcoming weekend, Sergio Martinez, who's one of my favorite fighters, as a not only as a fan, but you know, covering the sport. He's one of my favorite fighters to watch. I think fighting at 160 has served him very well. He seems more powerful. Seems he's not cutting weight that, you know, and it's not damaging him anymore. You know, it seems his punching power is what it should be at 160. He's fighting Darren Barker, a virtual unknown in the game. What do you think of Martinez this weekend, and do you think he could get a big fight? Because he's kind of stuck in a rough place right now. Because he said, I'm not going to go down to 150 to fight Mayweather or Pacquiao.
Yeah, but actually, this past week he did say that he would.
But
is that
it's
even
not
possible?
I really think it's more talk than him actually doing it, because of how much weight he'd be cutting.
He's 36 years old. It's hard to cut that
and
weight.
he is 36. So what does Sergio Martinez do from here? I mean, one, does he beat Barker, which I think he will, and two, what's next for him?
Yeah, it's unfortunate, isn't it? So much of like being, you know, carving your name into boxing history is having the right people to fight. It's not just who you are, but who you have to contest. And like you said, he's 36 years old, so he doesn't have a long time to wait around for somebody to come up. And, you know, he was at 54, as we know, for a long time. He's grown into 60, so as you said, going back down to 54 is hard. But he's a bit of a small middleweight, so 168, where a lot of the action isn't really an option for him. So there's just not a huge name for him. There's a number of okay names that I think probably would be a challenge, but he could get some, you know, kind of some coin for him. He'll beat Darren Barker. Barker, you know, but full credit to him, Barker will come to fight, but he just doesn't have, you know, what it takes, I think, to beat Sergio Martinez. He's more of a boxer. He doesn't have enough pop in him to discourage Martinez, but he's also pretty easy to hit. He's quite easy to hit as well, to the body, and I think Sergio will take advantage of that and probably beat him around round 7 or 8. What I would like to see, well, you know what, Matthew Macklin has signed with DeBella, and after his performance against Sturm, he showed that he would come to fight. He probably deserves a good shot. That might actually do better in the UK. Might earn Martinez some money there. Dmitry Pirog will be at the fight. His people have really messed up. You know, he had some great momentum off that Danny Jacobs fight, and then they threw it away, and they need to try and get that back. But I wouldn't mind seeing that fight. If Andy Lee beats Brian Vera, I wouldn't mind seeing that fight. Not because Lee's any challenge to Sergio Martinez, but because it would be a rocking atmosphere in New York, and Martinez deserves that kind of an atmosphere. But there's nothing immense for Sergio Martinez, unless he decides that he could make it down to like just over 54, and Floyd decided that he really wanted to make a statement. Both of those are about as probable as actually, you know, the U.S. women's goalkeeper becoming Hope Solo Mulvaney. It's probably not going to happen.
In that case, we might want to put money on it. I think it's going to happen. You never know. I was going to say the only other fight there that was possible, you know, even from a body standpoint, was Cotto moving up. And Cotto himself said there's just not enough money at this stage in his career for him to go up and fight Sergio Martinez. And can you blame him?
Martinez beat the heck out of him too, so.
Yeah, or maybe Canelo Alvarez down the road or something. Who knows? But Kieran, thanks a lot for being on Boxing During Dinner. I really appreciate it. Very funny guy.
Yeah,
he could add stand-up comedy to
the underrated
to his resume,
and the cultured and well-known Kieran Mulvaney.
Thanks. I'm looking forward to showing up with my own sandwiches some stage. I'll give you a call when I'm in Miami.
We look forward to
awesome.
it. We'll owe you dinner.
Exactly. So thanks a lot, Kieran.
Thanks a lot, guys. Bye-bye.
So that was Kieran Mulvaney of HBO, ESPN,
Discovery News,
Hope Solo, Fan Club.
Greenpeace. He's interviewed Al Gore. He's done it all.
The guy's incredible.
Polar Bears.
Charming, funny. I mean, I might have a man crush on Kieran Mulvaney. So come out next week. Click next week.
Yeah. So it's the episode will be up on YouTube. As usual, you can find it on Facebook. You'll find it one of these days on our website. Yeah, you know what? Our website is going to be directed to our YouTube page very soon.
Yeah.
Very soon. But catch us on @BoxDuringDinner on Twitter.
Yeah.
And Facebook.com.
And Gmail, boxingduringdinner@gmail.com. And next week we'll be celebrating our silver anniversary? 25?
25? What is it?
Yeah.
Silver?
Something like that.
Silver.
Whatever it is. The 25th,
why
25th
not?
episode. Let's find a reason. There's always a reason to celebrate.
And then episode 26 is going to be very interesting.
Yeah. I can't wait for that one.
It's not going to be from here. We're going to be dressed a little more formal.
Yeah. You're going to be dressed very formal.
I will be dressed very formal.
Yeah. We can't wait for you guys to find out what that was about.
All right, so see you next week on Boxing During Dinner.